An author was accused of using AI, so let's talk about it. And addressing the elephant in the room, I'm recording from my grandma's house in Shanghai because we're on vacation. We gotta make videos. So all of this starts with a couple of vague posts that started popping up on Threads. So here's this post written by Threads user Ophalic, and they write, "There was only vague proof it was AI. The belt was melting into the pants. It's the shoelaces all over again." And then we have another post by Difficult Woman Reads, writing, "Okay, where are these AI covers everyone is speaking of?" And a commenter by the name of Tori Loves underscore Hies says, and I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, "Whiskey Ginger's goods covers." Not at all blaming the authors. It seems like they were unaware and thought she really used her own talent to make these. So here are some examples of the book covers in question. So this is one featuring what looks like a sheriff wearing a sheriff cowboy hat and a woman who's doing pottery in the background. On first glance, it might be a cute little cover until you look a little closer. And again, these could definitely be human error, but there are some elements that look a little bit interesting. One, the first off is the fact that once again, our sheriff's shirt collar has two different collars actually. The one on the right doesn't exactly match the one on the left because the one on the right kind of has a little divots where the collar comes in and then like the lapel of the shirt comes out, and that is not featured on the collar on the left-hand side. Also to note is our sheriff is wearing a belt and the pants have belt loops. However, the belt loop color is supposed to typically be the color of the pants, and in our case the sheriff is wearing jeans. The sheriff has a beige colored top on, and the belt loop is actually beige. It's not jean colored. Also to note the fact that pants typically have even belt loops, and our sheriff has a belt loop on the right and no belt loop on the left. Now, benefit of doubt, the belt loop on the left could be hidden by the shadow or like the arm hanging across his leg, so maybe it's not as visible. And then we take a little look at the woman behind, and she is making pottery and she's kind of sculpting it on a pottery wheel, and her hands are kind of like resting on the clay. I've only done pottery once with a wheel, so like I could most definitely be wrong here, but her right hand looks a little bit awkward in that what looks to be her middle finger is a lot smaller than the rest of her fingers. And again, we most definitely can make the argument like, oh, maybe it's like one finger is hidden behind the other finger, or like these are, human errors, which definitely happens. Here we have another cover that's presented as an example. Here we have another cover. This one once again kind of is featuring the similar, like the collars aren't really matching up, but maybe it's just like a little bit wrinkled or something because the male lead has a very like rugged look to him. But to me, what looks kind of interesting about the collars, if you take a little bit of a closer look at them, sorry, I'm like looking on my phone because my VPN is not working here on my computer, but it is the fact that the collars kind of melt into the denim material of the shirt, especially the collar on the left. It's basically just gone. And one thing I do find a bit interesting is the warping that's kind of happening on the house in the back, especially that front porch. The roof of the porch is really wobbly, and maybe this could be a case of AI, or it could also be the case of an artist who decided not to use the line tool and decided to hand draw all their lines, which is why it ended up being a little wobbly. And the OP Difficult Woman Reads as, yes, those definitely have the look about them. Insert obligatory can't be sure disclaimer here. That really sucks for the authors, and it's quite scammy financially, morals and ethics aside. And Tori adds, I really feel bad for the authors. As far as I'm aware, none of them support AI, and these covers cost in the thousands. It sucks, and I hate it for them so bad if they paid that much for AI covers. So who is the artist in question exactly? They go by the handle Whiskey Ginger Goods, and they sell books and also do design. And I say they because on their website and in their Instagram posts, they refer to themselves as like a collective using terms like we and us. So it's a little bit hard to tell if it's like one person or multiple people, although there seems to be like one predominant person on the Instagram page, but maybe they're just the person running the Instagram. So there was a thread that was made calling out the artist that has now been deleted because apparently people were going and harassing the authors involved. And just to add a disclaimer, please don't harass anybody. It's not cool. But on top of that, these authors largely are victims in this situation as well, if it is true that the artist used AI in some of their works and passed it off as legitimate pieces. Because imagine you're an author and you're like, oh, okay, I finished writing my book. Let me do the good thing of actually hiring a legitimate artist to go make my cover so that, AI doesn't taint my precious work. And then It turns out the person you hired that you thought was legitimate was actually using AI. And so some screenshots from the original thread can be found in this thread by user the Brian Penny. Brian writes, I came across this whiskey ginger goods controversy and had to educate myself on what's happening, since the original post was deleted before I had a chance to read it. There's a lot to unpack, and it took time to figure it out. So this is the post in question, written by user Summer Grove, and they write, okay, well, I want to say I'm so sorry to all the authors who paid so much for these covers, and that no one, not the artist, not the authors, deserves bullying or hate. Please don't bully anyone, and read the last slide. But I hate watching indie author friends pay so much for these AI covers. And it's okay to disagree with me, but don't send abuse my way either. And from my knowledge, the last slide was another large set of disclaimers being like, hey, don't bully anyone, don't harass anyone. But the graphic reads, Whiskey Ginger Goods uses AI, and it's a photo of a whole bunch of their covers. And then it says, how do I know? And the next slide, that's a little bit cropped off, but the first photo has a bunch of photos of Whiskey's artwork, and it says, AI face. Very generic, like AI male face that if you do look up AI male, you could typically find pieces with really, really similar appearances. Now again, just because your art style looks like AI, I say this very loosely in quotes, right? AI is trained off of actual human work, so of course human work will look similar to AI work because AI was trained off of human work. So that's just one thing to add as well. This is one of the art pieces in question, and this was one of the pieces that was used in the thread slide that was like, this is the AI male face. And again, just to note that AI is trained off of actual human artists. And again, another disclaimer, please don't send hate to the author, because the author very likely had no idea, right? If it is allegedly AI. I think one thing, if you look at this piece that I just find a bit interesting, is that when it comes to AI, if AI is used, the anatomy tends to be a little bit interesting, especially with like muscular structure. And with these rugged men, especially these two on the right, you can see this like heavy like V tendonage happening like right here in the middle of the chest, which is just a bit interesting. Like we have some examples here. And, like, it is a feature that's often found in somebody with, like, more muscular structure, but you typically find that, like, tendon flexing in this area of the neck when your head is actually tilted kind of upwards like this, or you're looking off to the side, like, left or right. It typically doesn't flex like that if you're staring straight onto somebody. Like, here we have another example of somebody with that sort of, like, neck tendonage, but you typically will see it again, coming from, like, the lower jaw connecting into the middle of the clavicle here. And again, with like a head turn or like a chin tilted upwards to kind of flex that muscle. And then alongside that, with people with like that sort of like muscularity in this area of the chest, you'll find that like it'll have the V, and then you'll also have like a sort of bridging on both sides from the pec muscle being so pronounced, which will create that sort of effect in the chest area. I'm sorry it's coming off so nitpicky on like this little anatomy thing, but you often don't see it, especially with this character in the middle, happening on its own, that sort of like flexing right here on the neck with no head tilt upwards, no tendon flexing from your lower jaw all the way down to the middle of the clavicle here, and kind of like a lack of that like pec muscle protrusion in the upper area. So it's just interesting. It could be artist choice, but then in that case, I would also be a little bit curious as to what reference photo was used. Maybe there is like somebody who can flex that muscle. But to also add, and to be completely fair to Whiskey as well, when you go through their page, they have a lot of other styles of work. They have very stylized work, what looks to be much more of like a pin-up style, and traditional work as well, which obviously if it's traditional, you can't fake with AI for the most part, right? Unless you're like tracing something, I don't know. They can draw. Most definitely. And they most definitely are good at drawing as well. There are just a couple pieces amongst the group that are also the pieces that were often used for book covers that look to the general public and to me a little bit suspicious. Then we have this post by Alex in the Abstract writing, AI allegations have been made against popular cover artist Whiskey Ginger Goods. What do you think? AI or hand-drawn? And we have a video by Alex. It reads, what not to do now. Do not assume the authors with covers by this artist know that they're AI. They may have no idea. I also want to add a second point too, is that in the unfortunate case, sometimes these authors will sign like multi-book contracts with one cover artist. So if later they do find out that AI was used in the process allegedly, they are contract locked into not backing out. So you're up shit creek without a paddle. You know, please don't harass anybody, but I really don't think it's the author's fault here. It also reads, don't attack or bully anyone, not the artist, not the authors. If you have unknowingly paid for AI designs, request your money back. Getting a new cover is expensive and time-consuming. If an author doesn't change their cover immediately, it doesn't mean they condone AI use.
User Summer posted on Threads, it has been taken down because people were still going after the authors, and we have no proof that the authors had any idea of this involvement. So let's take a look. You can see these Whiskey Ginger covers from Victoria Wilder, Paisley Hope, and many others. And as you can see here, they all do have somewhat of a similar face. That's not enough, but this is just slide 1.
So this is slide 2 that Summer posted, where it says 2 inconsistencies. AI really messes up on the little things, the things that humans don't have to think twice about. Take the center shirt, for example. In the green top half of the shirt, the opening is from the right-hand side. On the bottom half, the opening is on the left hand. Would a human artist do that? And this kind of reminds me of the AI Miku piece where there was a Miku figure contest. And then one of the winning ones, Miku is sitting and she has like the wrong shoe on each foot. She has like a left shoe on the right foot and then a right shoe on the left foot. And of course, people make human errors all the time. People will like flip hands, but it's like rarely something that typically happens.
You can see at the top there that his shirt starts unbuttoning on one side, but then when you go to the bottom, it is magically on the other. That is just not something you would draw if you were a human drawing a shirt.
At first glance, I was like, wait, what are they referring to? It's again, because the shirt opens on this side, right? And then you see how heavy the shadow is on the left-hand side on the bottom half of the shirt, which would imply that is the way the shirt is opening. I had to like stare at it to catch that.
Then we can see from a mock-up, this is from the mock-up of the Piper Rain cover, you can see his hand just looks kind of mangled. AI often has trouble with hands especially. And here it is cleaned up on the finished cover. If there wasn't AI used, why would that have been an issue in the first place? Who would draw it wrong? And then again, just more details of things that a human artist would not do. Belt loops vanishing, disappearing into shirts, etc. The spike on the collar. Go ahead and pause to read this one, but there are no sketches recently on her page.
And then this is what looks to be the 4th page where it says 5, no sketches or videos on her feed. Not inherently suspicious, but it doesn't help. This new style of cover only started once AI became capable of generating images in this detail. 3. Prior to AI becoming capable of these images, she just edited and drew over photos. Again, not inherently bad, but it's clear she doesn't draw from scratch and that AI really speeds up and cheapens that process. And then it adds, Lenny Kaufman posted a very helpful video explaining how scammers use AI and make it look hand-painted. So this is Lenny's video in question.
It's unethical because most of the images used for Gen AI are taken without the artist's consent, and it also has a massive carbon footprint. Now, some artists are taking it a step further by generating an image and then tracing it and using colors from it to create their own version of the AI.
I also forgot to add, Lenny is a very, very reputable book cover artist that has made covers for many books, including some that you might have read.
So first, the artist will generate an AI image from Midjourney or the equivalent. Pinterest is full of these bland-looking characters with little to no expression and quite exaggerated, hypermasculine or hyperfeminine faces. The men always look like beefcakes, the women have faces that look like a cross between Barbie and anime, with various degrees of realism. Some look more photographic, some look more vintage-looking, they all look a bit uncanny. So I'll import this AI image into Procreate, which is a drawing tool, and I'll import it on a layer that's private. Now, doing this means that layer is kept private and out of any video playback. So if you see a video playback of the artist's process, you won't see the AI image. Very sneaky. Then I'll trace the AI image, and this will presumably be what gets sent to the author or the client. At this stage, keep an eye out for sketches that look too clean or too finished.
Also, just to add as well, typically, again, the authors are receiving sketches throughout the process from my understanding. So again, even more reason for the authors to assume that the artist is legitimate because like, oh, if you get a sketch, well, they must have handmade it, right?
Next, I use the AI image to color pick, so I'm literally picking colors from the AI image and coloring in my sketch. This is basically like paint by numbers. Or some artists will just smudge parts of the AI image to make the finished image look more quote-unquote painted. The end result is an image that is still AI, but with added steps. The faces will look hypermasculine or feminine, but will also look bland and expressionless. And it still has that AI face. If in doubt, reach out to an artist you trust that you know is good at spotting AI. Another thing to look out for on the artist's page is if they have suddenly started drawing like this post-2022. AI started getting widely used in 2022, so if they have a completely different style prior to that, or if they are suddenly drawing in this hyperreal style, that's also a red flag. Keep an eye out for inconsistencies as well. Maybe the faces are hyper detailed, but the way their hands or clothes are drawn are more loose and sketchy. This will be because the artist is maybe correcting AI mistakes. So for example, redrawing hands that have 5 fingers instead of 6.
Very, very heavy on the their style change in 2022. Again, everybody changes their art styles. You look at art styles, you're like, ooh, this one looks really pretty. I want to go and use this style. But there are many times where legitimate artists who have hands that are very capable of drawing at some point decided, oh, I'm going to start using AI because it's easier or I like it better or whatever reason, insert some bland reason here. And it all started happening after the popularization of AI in 2021, 2022.
That they drew looked more hand-drawn. That is a dead giveaway. Are they suddenly drawing like Norman Rockwell out of the blue? That's very suspicious. Some artists will also try to throw people off the scent by peppering in hand-drawn illustration amongst the AI-generated images. This makes them look legitimate in some people's eyes, but many artists will still be able to spot the AI images amongst the real illustrations. Beyond the ethical implications of using AI like this is also fraud. The artist is pretending that they drew an AI image when they didn't draw it. That's fraud. If it's an AI image, they also don't own the copyright for that image, which means they have no right to sell it on to an author or a publisher. This will create problems down the line for anyone doing business with an illustrator like this.
Again, very heavy also on peppering in legitimate pieces in between AI-assisted ones. And again, this is how these artists try to go and dodge the AI accusations, because people who defend them will be like, well, look at this piece, it looks super legitimate. And it's like, yeah, that one was. Look at this one wasn't. Again, all alleged because we don't have a smoking gun for the author in question, Whiskey Ginger Goods, but these are just ways that these AI fraudsters will typically try to make it look like they're not doing what they're actually doing.
I'm also just going to insert some comments I took from Whiskey Ginger's Instagram of people affirming her that she's just kind of hearted because she stopped responding to any kind of criticism. Now, I'm not condoning any kind of bullying. You absolutely should not rush to her page or again to the author's page. This is not their fault, but it is kind of interesting what she's liking. This leaves a really weird taste in my mouth.
Whiskey Ginger Goods then makes a statement, and this statement reads, "It's just me. I don't usually engage with online noise, but this isn't for me. It's for the authors I work with. They don't deserve harassment. Every piece I create comes from decades of practice in illustration, photography, and love for the craft. I'm not here to cut anyone down. I'm here to build. My art, my community, and the authors and artists I'm lucky to work alongside. I am also strongly anti-theft in art. My own work has been stolen countless times, and I know firsthand how painful that is. That's why I'm committed to creating original work, with care and intention every time. Someone says my work looks devoid of emotion. Honestly, I think that's fair. My portfolio often does feel stoic to me. Emotion is something I wrestle with conveying, and I feel vulnerable about that. But that's not new. My catalog of pinups aren't smiling, and I rarely ask my live subjects to. If the men sometimes look similar, it's because I'm still newer to drawing them. And truthfully, the real human man I often use as reference is kind of a grump. It's a vibe. I'm always learning, always building. That's the point. So please know, there's a human behind every line. A human who has labored, studied, obsessed, cried, and lost sleep over her work. A human who is thankful for your love and here to bring light and support to the creative community. So here, they say it's just me, so I'm assuming now they're a team of one instead of a team of multiple people, which is what their website sounds like. And it's not uncommon for people to have, businesses and they make it seem like there's more than one person working there just to for business purposes. After they put out the statement, a lot of people were kind of 50-50 on the statement. People who supported Whiskey Ginger Goods are like, yeah, you go girl, pop off, say your piece. And other people were like, that is a lot of words. And not a single sentence says, I don't use AI. And people basically felt like it was clever wordsmithing to make a statement that sounds like it's addressing the question at hand without actually addressing the question at hand, because the word AI was never actually used at any point in this statement. There was no explicit, I didn't use it, I've never touched it, I'm against AI. She says, I'm against theft. And then you could make the argument, oh, if you don't view AI as theft, then this is a true statement. That's just a thought to put in here because this is what some people online have felt. And then going all the way back to the thread that we were referencing from Brian Penny, I feel like he has a lot of really good points that he's mentioned, saying, for one, I see what people say it's AI. Some of her IG definitely uses it. However, I also see she's clearly an artist with real skill. That's why I think she drew so much heat. People should pay attention to the lesson. And this is just a comment that another person left where it reads, there was a post about Whiskey Ginger Goods. It got archived because people started harassing the authors, unfortunately. The artist made a statement but didn't actually mention AI in the post, so it's all kind of a mess to be honest, since a lot of authors have worked with them. Brian adds, from what I can tell, the problem isn't the AI itself. The problem is people paid a professional for a service based on prior work and reputation and feel that professional blew them off for AI. Imagine hiring Norman Rockwell to paint your portrait, so he feeds your photo into AI and types, quote, in the style of Norman Rockwell, unquote. You could have done that yourself. You didn't hire Norman Rockwell at Norman Rockwell prices for him to screenshot your computer and say he's done. This is a real problem. Speaking of Norman Rockwell, this style of painting took him roughly 2 to 3 weeks of full-time work to paint. I believe Whiskey Ginger has the skill to paint like Rockwell. However, I doubt she has the time to be productive enough to get rich without AI. If I could find a way to get paid for a 2 to 3 week project that only takes me 2 to 3 days of prompting and editing, I would take that deal any day, because it means I can 10 times my earnings. I see why an artist would do it. But perception of AI value is low. So although AI bros keep parroting, quote, adapt or die, end quote, to convince you to go for that 10 times potential, it's more prudent to repeat, adapt and die in your head. AI isn't just a tool. It's a cursed tool that gives you extra XP and agility while decreasing your dexterity. What you gain in speed, you lose in quality, and backlash is inevitable when people believe they are commissioning an artist original only to get an AI output in that artist's style. You have been warned. And I do think that's kind of the final thing of it all, and I personally am against Gen AI, obviously. But beyond like the ethics of Gen AI or not, etc., I think the deception part, if it is true that AI was used in the process, is the biggest issue overall. I do think that if you advertise yourself with a false impression that you are an illegitimate artist, hypothetically speaking on a broader sense, not even talking specifically about Whiskey Ginger Goods here, and people commission you thinking you are a legitimate human artist without AI assistance in the process, and then you do use this sort of assistance, then it is a bit disingenuous because that's not what people expected, you know? So I would love to hear your thoughts about the situation. Do you think Whiskey Ginger Goods uses AI, at least in some regard, in their art process? Do you think they didn't and that it's completely legitimate? And what are your thoughts on advertising yourself as a service who makes artwork, but if you did use AI in the process, not disclosing it? Do you think that's okay? Do you think it's deceptive? Would love to hear your thoughts with respect down below in the comment section. And once again, please don't harass anybody involved. Not the author, not the artist, and not any of the commenters. Please don't do that. And anyways, if you like this video, I appreciate it if you like and subscribe. F and chat for my camera that keeps overheating. I'm trying to record. Nothing is working. My VPN isn't working over here in China. Okay, I spent $12 to get a VPN and I can't get it to connect to my computer because it's not letting me make an account. I don't even know what's happening anymore. Anyways, crashing out a little bit. But I hope you liked the video. Catch me on Etsy. I have digital art there for streamers and creators. I was working on some panels on my flight over from Singapore to China and didn't finish it, but maybe I'll get some more artwork up there. We'll see. I also have a coffee with free resources, like a free sponsorship guide for streamers and creators. And I do stream on Twitch 3 days a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, Saturdays at 6 p.m. PST. So I hope to catch you guys there when I'm back from my trip to Asia, or in another video where I'm in the same setup because I am going to be in China for a little bit.